and gentlemen, before we begin this meeting, I ask that everyone silence your cell phones. Fort Bend Board of Trustees is an open meeting for the public to observe the board conducting district business. Therefore, audience members may address the board during the designated audience items section on the agenda. If you have any printed materials you want to give to the board members, you must provide them to the board member, Jane Kaiser, or to me, and we'll provide them to the board members. We also ask that the members of the audience be respectful of others and remain quiet during the meeting so that everyone is able to hear the proceedings. For your convenience, microphones have been placed on both sides of the boardroom. Please speak directly into the microphone if you're asked to answer a question or address the board during the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Ontiveros. This meeting is hereby called to order. The time is 6:07 p.m. The meeting has been duly called and notice of the meeting has been posted for the time and manner required by law, and we do have a quorum. We will start with the pledges of allegiance, and then we will have a silent invocation and a moment of silence for the student, the Clements High School student that we lost this weekend, Brian Ewan. She's good.
You're hired.
You're hired. I'm gonna let you run the meeting next time. Recognitions are next. I assume we're gonna get to recognize this young lady for her good work. Mrs. Porter.
The board would join me in front of the dais. We will recognize some outstanding staff and students.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. Tonight we are proud to recognize several students and staff members. And first, we'll start with an 8th grade Sartarsha Middle School student who was chosen to lead the Pledges of Allegiance tonight. Anjali Patel is the Student Council President. She is described by her teachers as being a fantastic leader, devoted to service, who does whatever she can do to better her school. And we've seen that tonight. Please help us recognize and congratulate Anjali Patel. And if you're here to support Anjali, would you please stand so we may recognize you? Thank you. Next, Matthew Whaley from Elkins High School was selected to represent the Gulf Coast region as the male Gulf Coast Hugh O'Brien Youth, or HOBY, Ambassador at the World Congress held July 23rd through 30th at Loyola University in Chicago. The event welcomed students from 11 different countries, including the United States, China, France, Italy, and Turkey, for 8 days of leadership exploration, team building, and hands-on community service projects. Participants also enjoyed keynote speakers and engaged in expert panel presentations. Every year, outstanding sophomores are selected to represent their school at the HOBY Leadership Seminar, designed to inspire and develop our global community of youth to a life dedicated to leadership, service, and innovation. Held at Texas A&M University in Galveston, the event gives participants an opportunity to interact one-on-one with educational and government leaders, discuss issues impacting the community, and learn about high school leadership organizations. Participants were also challenged to commit 100 hours of community service within the next year. Please help us recognize and congratulate Matthew Whaley. And if you're here to support Matthew, will you please stand so we may recognize you? Thank you. And finally, Fort Bend ISD's Assistant Director of Fine Arts, Tammy Patterson, was awarded the Texas Choral Director Association Choral Excellence Award on July 23, 2016, at the association's state convention. The Texas Choral Directors Association annually presents awards of appreciation to its members who have shown exceptional talents and dedication to their chosen profession. The Choral Excellence Award is based on the recipient's contributions to choral music in Texas, mentorship and inspiration to colleagues and students, and continued advocacy for the future of choral singing. The nominations are made by members of the Texas Choral Directors Association. The Fort Bend ISD Department of Fine Arts is thrilled that the Texas Choral Directors Association recognized Tammy's lifetime work as a choral music director and administrator with this award. Please help us recognize and congratulate Tammy Patterson. And if you're here to support Tammy, please stand to be recognized. Dr. Dupree, that concludes our recognitions.
Thank you, Mrs. Porter. We now move on to audience items. We have one speaker signed up, Mr. Clarence Holliday. Mr. Holliday, you can use, I think, that microphone right there. He's going to turn on for you. And Ms. Helliger will keep time for you. You'll have 3 minutes, and she'll give you, let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Am I ready?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Clarence Holliday. I'm currently serving as the president of the Missouri City and Vicinity branch of the NAACP. I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you. One of the questions on the form I filled out to request to address Fort Bend ISD Board asked if I tried to resolve my concern by conferencing with an administrator. Excuse me. And to that, I did answer yes, and Christian and Miss James were the names that I put down. My concern is the ability of all segments of the community to have a somewhat consistent and equal voice in regarding how Fort Bend ISD is governed. Many in the community feel neglected and have little trust for Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustees. And one of the things that seem to perpetuate these feelings is how Fort Bend ISD trustees are elected. The trustee elections seem to be about the only elections in the area that are held where each specific segment of the community may not have a voice in the decision-making process. And the Fort Bend ISD listening tour seems to somewhat verify the need to get out and talk with more or all residents within the community. City council elections, county elections, state representative elections, congressional elections, all assure that each area has a specific representative from their district. So tonight, after speaking initially with the aforementioned, I ask that the full Board of Trustees consider a vote to allow single-member district elections for Fort Bend ISD. although it may be well documented, it may not be well documented, this request has been in play for over 30 years. I hope that each board member will give this request for a board vote more serious consideration. If you have any questions, you may call me. My cell number is 281-455-2510, and I have a correction to make. In speaking with some of the other board members, we did talk about possibly a petition drive to get this on an election, to get this on the ballot. But our hierarchy has decided that our next conversation should be with the ACLU, and we have started those conversations.
30
We
seconds.
would like to get this settled in-house, so to speak. And if I have any time left, I'd like to, Ron, would you like to make any comments? So I'd like for you to please to consider giving this situation a serious discussion, and at least have an election with the board members to determine if it's valid or if you want to look into this a little bit more. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holliday. We appreciate you being here. That is all the speakers we have signed up this evening. The next item on our agenda is an information item for the 2015-16 STAR Performance Update. Dr. Dupree?
Yes, ma'am. This is going to be part 3 of our performance update, the accountability update on the 15-16 student outcomes. So Dr. Megan Evans, our Director of Innovation and Continuous Improvement, is going to provide the update this evening. Megan?
All right, thank you, Dr. Dupree. Good evening, Dr. Dupree and Board of Trustees. Like he mentioned just a minute ago, this is part 3 of our 2016 STAR Performance and Accountability Update. So if we remember last week at our board workshop, we discussed and provided an overview of the one-page accountability summary for the district. And so we reviewed each component of this, including our accountability rating for 2016 at the district level, our performance index report, distinction designations, and system safeguards. But we provided a comprehensive overview of 2 of the 4 indexes or indices, and those included Index 1, Student Achievement, as well as Index 2, Student Progress. So this evening I would like to provide a comprehensive look at Index 3, which you'll see on this page is the purple bar on the graph, and that is known as closing performance gaps, as well as Index 4, which is the red bar on the bar graph, and that is post-secondary readiness. So what we provided last week for you was a duplicate packet of those 13 pages, the TEA accountability summary that we get for every campus and every district, typically the first week of August. Due to testing issues this year, it was delayed till mid-September. So this is still fairly new information for us to look at, and I'm going to highlight today what are the key pieces that we use to drive continuous improvement in Index 3 and Index 4. So what I'd like to start with is that purple bar on that first page, and that's Index 3 closing performance gaps. Really, truly, the core of this index highlights Level 3 advanced performance. And so what the state looks at in this index is always our economically disadvantaged student group, as well as our 2 lowest performing race ethnicity student groups from the prior year. So for 2015, for Fort Bend ISD, our 2 lowest performing student groups was our African American student group and our Hispanic student group. So you can see I've provided a snapshot on the screen of the first page of this packet. Index 3, the state provides us 5 pages of this packet. This is a weighted calculation, and we're going to highlight one piece just to articulate how the data is provided to us. So this first page just provides a snapshot of our economically disadvantaged student group and our African American and Hispanic student group, and the performance for reading, mathematics, writing, science, and social studies. But what I'd like to direct your attention to is the next page, which I provided a snapshot of that. It's page 2 of 5 for the Index 3 packet. And I just want to provide a little bit of an articulation of the first section of that, which is reading performance. Of this 5-page packet, pages 2 and 3 are the most useful for us as far as improvement is required. And so what we're looking at here, what I'd like to highlight is our economically disadvantaged student group. I'm looking at reading performance, And what you can see here is the state has provided for us the count of the number of tests that were included for this. So for the number of tests for reading, that was 16,569. So of that, 69% of our economically disadvantaged students earned a level 2 satisfactory standard. That is that student phase-in standard. Remember, we're phasing in year after year, all the way to 21, 22. So this is that low phase-in student standard. We had 69% of our students in reading earn that level 2, and we had 12% earn at the advanced standard. That's our level 3 advanced. So combined, that's an 81%. So what I'll highlight is this is inclusive. So for those that are counted in the advanced, they also count for us in that level 2 satisfactory standard. So how is this useful for us? How do we use this for campus and district improvement planning? One of the pieces that we look for is we look for opportunities here to identify where our student groups are not achieving 100% at that level 3 advanced standard. And so we start with our economically disadvantaged student group and move to the right. One of the things that I will acknowledge about this index that's important is you might have students count multiple ways in the same index. For example, you might have a Hispanic student that is also economically disadvantaged. So for that illustration, they would count twice in this index. So this is important for us for improvement planning purposes. And like I mentioned, these are the 2 key pages of that 5-page report that we look at, which is page 2 and page 3. So what I'd like to do is move to index 4, which is post-secondary readiness. You'll see I provided a snapshot of that first section of the first page. This is a 3-page report. For districts and for high schools, there are 4 indicators in this one index. One of them includes STAR measures and 3 are non-STAR indicators. And so one of the key pieces of this index is the percentage of our students performing at a level 2 final. So one of the things that I want to highlight, I'm going to walk through all 4 of these indicators, and then I want to talk about some celebrations, if you will, for the district at our level 2 final and areas of opportunity for growth. And so also for high school and for district, the state is looking at graduation rates. So based on either a 4-year graduation cohort or a 5-year, the better of. They look at the graduation rate included in accountability, as well as diploma plans. So not simply are we graduating our students, but are they graduating on a recommended plan, distinguished, plans with endorsements? So the state looks at that as well. And they also include additional post-secondary indicators. Our students that are enrolled in coherent sequences for CTE, our students that are earning 2 or more credits in advanced placement, as well as our students that are scoring at that Texas Success Initiative on our TSI, ACT, and SAT. So what I'd like to highlight, if you'll turn please to page 2 of 3, in that post-secondary readiness data table. I mentioned a little bit ago about celebration. So I want to talk a little bit about our 2016 STAR post-secondary readiness. So if you look at the all students, we have 58% of our students meeting at that level 2 final standard on 2 or more assessments. What we've seen in the last 3 years is great gains in all subject areas for this performance indicator. And I believe Dr. Dupree provided a set of results for that in August of 2016, showing over time that level 2 final, this is one standard that has not changed since the inception of STAR. So it's an important standard for us to be able to compare constants. So this one shows us that 58% of our students are adequately prepared to address the curriculum in future grade levels. Beginning with the 4-year graduation rate all the way to the 3rd page, all of those pieces indicate credits earned or diplomas earned or graduation up until the class of 2015. Okay, so this is always typically, it's a year behind for us, if not more than that. But why is this important? The indicators that we look at on these data tables for 2016-17, so that includes the percentage of our students that were graduating, the percentage of our students scoring at a post-secondary readiness with CTE, AP, all of that's important because this year's data is included in 2018 accountability, our first year of A through F ratings. So we've been very proactive this year, beginning at Leadership Launch in early August, presenting all of that information and have plans set in place and making sure that we are ensuring that all of our students are graduating, and not just graduating on a minimum foundation plan, but they are graduating at a higher level with that diploma plan. So that concludes this part of the accountability presentation. Like I mentioned at the workshop last week, we did receive some excellent questions from board members asking where are we, Fort Bend ISD, compared to the state, compared to peer groups, peer districts, as well as the region. We are outperforming the state. We are outperforming many of our peer groups, as well as many districts in the region. And so what I wanted to provide you, and you'll be receiving this week, is a memo with detailed reports that shows Fort Bend ISD's performance compared to all of the peers, our region, and across the state. That concludes my presentation. If there are any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. We appreciate that. You actually answered my question with that last statement there.
Okay.
Do we have other questions or comments from the trustees? Ms. Helliger?
Yes, and thank you. And I look forward to getting that information concerning where we outperform, because you did indicate where we outperform others in areas. But when I look at the 2016 STAR post-secondary readiness versus all students at 58%, meaning that 58% of the students who take this test, is this in high school, correct?
No, the STAR post-secondary is all the way from grade 3 to the EOC assessments.
We have a total of 58% of our students. Do we as a district have a goal of how we want to, of what our standard is or what we would like to meet?
And that's the kind of thing we're working on now as part of the planning. We don't have that at this point.
So that is one of the pieces that we are working to include in the district improvement plan. We're bringing that forward this Wednesday to our AAC. But one of the things I will highlight about that indicator is that's a percentage of our students scoring at that level 2 final. So if you didn't need a phase-in every single year that we're doing right now, so they're already there on 2 or more assessments. So not in, or 1 if they've only taken 1 assessment. But 58% of our students on 2 or more assessments are scoring already at that level at 21, 22. And that's where we've seen a lot of gains over the last 3 years in that, in all tested areas.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Helliger. Mr. Rice?
My goal is 100%.
I agree with you.
Ditto. Mrs. James?
I know tonight isn't the night that we're talking about subject areas in particular, although I guess we did a little bit in closing performance gaps, which, by the way, I am interested about that and how we are addressing that, and I don't know that that's a subject of tonight's conversation, but it seems like I'd like to know what we are doing to address this, because we're not. The data is pretty clear that we have a gap, and so I just want to know how we're addressing it. I'd also like to know what's happening to that gap. Is it staying the same? Is it growing? Is it getting smaller? What does the data from the past years show us, and how are we, what's the trend look like? My question for tonight is, when we look at the subjects, what do you think, or what is the district consider our area of greatest need? This may not be a question for you, because I know you're the statistician. But maybe looking at the stats, what's our area of greatest need? And maybe the answer is different in the short term versus the long term, but I'd like to know what your opinion is, or staff's opinion is.
So certainly writing is an area that we've identified for greatest need, particularly when you look at the all students and by student group. To address your comment earlier about achievement gaps, that's one of the pieces of information we will be providing this week for you. Not only the achievement gap this year that we're looking at, but over time. What we've identified as the best performance indicator to look at is that level 2 final, since that has stayed constant since 2012. All of the others, and as we're moving forward, the standard for what it's going to take for a student to pass will change year to year. So you're not truly looking at an apples to apples comparison, but with the level 2 final indicator, you are. So we will be providing that data for you this week.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. Mrs. James. Any other questions from the trustees?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here this evening and for that presentation. With that, we are now going to convene in closed session under the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, for the purpose of a private consultation with the board's attorney on any or all subjects or matters authorized by law and under the sections listed in the agenda. We are now convened in closed session.